All right, so we're going to continue with this theme. Today I'm not going to tell you who I'm talking about. I'm going to see if you guys can figure this out. And then for the new people, the last few weeks I've been we're doing characters of the Bible. Major characters of the Bible, some minor characters. We're going to be doing this for quite some time because we realize that there's a lot of people who may have gone to church, gone to catechism, gone to, as Kevin said earlier, but still don't have any idea of any of the characters of who these people are, what they were about, anything about their lives. And so we're kind of breaking these people down to give you like a bigger picture. But then we're going to, at the end, I'm going to break character and we're just going to have the Q&A. I'm going to kind of share some tidbits about this person today. And we can have some discussion. But I wanted to try to break each person down into like a first-person account. So I'm going to tell you a story, just like the people hundreds of years ago passed these stories down orally. They shared stories. They told a story about the people in this book. And so today, let's introduce myself. I'm a man. And not only am I a man, I'm a pattern. And I want you to pay attention because what you're about to hear in my story, you will hear many other times throughout history. First of all, well, I'm not going to tell you my name. I decided to change that in the thing here. But you might have heard some things about me, or maybe heard my name means this, or my name means that. And the way it's spelled actually gives more of a clue of who I am, as opposed to maybe what you've heard about me. I don't know if you can guess my name yet.
How do you spell it?
Nah, I'm gonna get there. Hang on. You may have heard that I was a hunter. Which I was. I was a hunter, but not really for animals. You see, after Noah and his family spread out and new communities started to grow, new tribes started to emerge, there were many different tribes, many different groups of people that were getting together. And we all spoke the same language, but we all had a little bit different dialect. I mean, some people said good morning, and some people said, hey, y'all. Some people said Sam's Club, and some people said Same's Club. I don't know if you've heard any of these before. That's kind of different, kind of weird, but there's all these different dialects, and they say the same words, but it just doesn't sound right. Anyways, I learned that in these tribes, there were many limitations of things that we could potentially do, but because we were still broken up into tribes, we were limited on this great stuff that we could potentially accomplish. And if I could just get these tribes to maybe work together, I could build something awesome. Besides, these people needed someone to lead them, didn't they? So I learned, I studied, I learned people. I learned what people wanted. I learned what people needed. I learned what people desired. I learned what to say to people to get them to do something that they never would have done before. And as I moved from the East, I built the first city in human history. I brought these tribes together because I learned how to seduce people. Since I had moved away from the East, I replaced one thing that previously held them all together. And I also had this brilliant idea. What if I could make everyone the same? Like a brick. How could I create a system where people were willing to give up their possessions, give up their material selves, give up their individuality? What if I could take away all of their unique qualities, their creativity, their identity, their character, their faith? What would I do? What would I need to do to be able to accomplish this? Well, first of all, I'd have to create distrust in the people around them, the system that they lived in. I'd have to create distrust. Maybe I would even reward dishonest people. Maybe I would create cynicism within the communities, or hopelessness, or even despair I would get them thinking about these things and just living in a way where maybe I could then find a tool where I could promote anger. I could promote anxiety. I could promote sadness. And I could point out the ineptness and the incompetence of their leaders. And last, I'd have to make everything uncertain. Because the last thing that people can live or stand against is certainty. So let's find a way to make everything uncertain. And once I've accomplished all of these things, then I can appeal to everyone's natural instincts within them. I'll cast a vision so grand and so big, something that will be magnificent that everyone would want to be a part of it, but they can't accomplish this unless they realize we can't do it unless we all do it together. We all have to be working together on this grand vision. And don't worry, it will never be accomplished, so it's not even real. But my idea is to get everybody together with this vision. Remember, I'm a hunter. And I know how to appeal to people's emotions. I know your brain chemistry. I know how to pull the strings. You will give up your wealth. You'll give up your possessions. You'll even give up your freedom just to achieve this grand vision. Oh, don't worry. Don't worry, I said. We'll create a centralized system. We'll take care of all of your needs. All the economy will be taken care of. We'll even take care of all your food for you. And once you become a worker completely devoted to the state, I'll take care of everything else. And together, we will reach the heavens. Together, we will create our own heaven. But to do this thing, I need you to give up everything to me. I mean, don't you want to create this miraculous, unique society? Then I need you to be all in. Now, Noah's God, he didn't care for this idea. In fact, he blew the whole thing up. Can you guess my name? Not you. I already know you know it. You got it like the second line. Like, oh, I know who that is. Izzy. Is it Nimrod? Excellent. Nimrod. You guys heard of Nimrod before? Nimrod is an interesting story. And it begins, a lot of people think it begins in, well, what story, I'm talking about Nimrod, but what's the story that he's connected to that you might not even know he's connected to, that the story that I was leading you to? What's that story called? Tower of Babel. So let's go there. Chapter 11, Genesis. Oh, wait, go back.
You skipped this.
Oh, yeah, I might have. Yeah, let's go back to the Genesis 9 then. Genesis 10, I mean. So Genesis 11 is where we typically find the Tower of Babel. And Lindley said, well, how do you spell your name? So I got it right here, Lindley. Chapter 11, verses 1 through 6 is basically the story, but we're going to back up to chapter 10. And this is actually where you find the beginning of this story. This is 10 verses 9 and 10. I'm going to back up to 8. It says this, and Cush brought forth Nimrod. He began to be a mighty hunter on the earth. He was a mighty hunter before the Lord. Therefore, it is said, like Nimrod, the mighty hunter before Yahweh. And the beginning of his reign was Babel, and Erech, and Akkad, and Calneh, and in the land of Shinar. Who's got a different translation? Who's got a different translation? I know you have a different translation than mine. Nobody has this one, because it's a little bit
Same
different.
words.
That's the same word.
Mighty hunter.
What does it say? Read it, Aaron. What does yours ESV say?
He was the first on earth to be a mighty man. He was a mighty hunter before the Lord. Therefore, it is said, like Nimrod, a mighty hunter before the Lord.
Okay, excellent. Anybody else have anything different? It's all kind of the same, similar. So a lot of times we think of Nimrod as like, oh, he's a mighty hunter. But it doesn't actually say that. His name is actually spelled out in his letters, as Lindley was asking. How do you spell that? It's Nun Mem Resh Dalet is the way that you spell his name. And if you take the letters in each letter, as we said, has meaning. His name actually means, he said, get down. So what we're going to find in these passages is there's all these clues in the Hebrew that we don't see in the English. His name literally means get down. What would that tell you about this person? What?
Demanding.
I didn't hear you, Mandy. I can't hear you.
Demanding.
He's demanding. Okay, what did you say?
Protector.
Protector? I don't know about protector so much. I mean, yeah, he is definitely a protector of what, though?
Subservitude.
He wants.
Of what he wants, yes.
He's a domineer.
He's a domineer, yes. This idea of you, he didn't say, I'm going to get down. He said, you get down. In my name, I am above you. And the interesting part about this is it says he's a mighty hunter before the Lord, which is interesting because the word in there for before is the Hebrew word penem. If you watch the movie, right? What is it called? Hunger Games, right? The place is, the city is Panem, but literally Panem is translated in Hebrew as face. So it's the idea of he was this person in the face of God. Well, that tells you a little bit different than instead of just before the God. It's kind of like he was in the face of God. And if you've ever had any children, you know, who were a little obstinate and they said, hey, don't get near that, don't touch that, whatever you do, don't touch that. You ever have those children? Oh, yeah. This is Nimrod, right? I don't care what you tell me to do. I'm going to do what I want to do because I'm going to do it. And so there's all these little clues. And then Babylon and Shinar, there's all these other clues as well. So let's go to chapter 11. We don't have time for the Shinar, but chapter 11. Somebody read verse 1 for me, please.
Now the whole earth had one language and the same words.
Excellent. So language. And as I said, there's different dialects. And so the word for language there is sufa, which literally means lips. And so it can be translated as language, but it could also be understood as more specifically communication. So what's the idea of when you have one communication? Not only on the same page, everybody, if everybody is on the same page, how does that happen?
There's only one form of information going out.
That's right. You don't get your choice. You don't have a freedom to speak your mind or your will or your opinions. There's one sufa. There's one thing being communicated here and only here, and that's it. There's no options. Everybody is forced now to have one communication, which is fascinating. And in this case, you know, it's communicating this idea. You have one voice that comes from one state. Devar, then, is also another interesting word because it says you have one language and one speech. Well, it sounds like you're saying the same thing because there's two different Hebrew words here. One is sufa and one is devar. And devar is this word that's very hard in Hebrew to actually translate. There's a lot of things that it gives it, but it really could be translated as material or materialistic. Like there's these material things. So devar could mean things. So there's one communication and there's one thing and one thing only. And the things that you have all come from this same place where the communication comes from. It all comes from this one state. Verse 2. Somebody else. Who's got me?
It came about as they journeyed east, and they found a plain in the land of Shinar and settled there.
Excellent. Read the east part again. What did it say? And they came.
And they came as they journeyed east, and they found a plain in land of Shinar and settled there.
Excellent. All right, that's what I wanted to point out. Did you hear what her translation said? And they came to the east. Because if you look on a map, and there's all these different directions, and you'll see this throughout Scripture. Every time that you see this, that they're heading to the east. It's, you know, you look at like Lot and Abraham. They were in Israel and they headed to the east. Lot went to the east. The problem is the Hebrew doesn't actually say that. It doesn't say that they headed to the east. It said they headed from the east. Well, that doesn't make any sense. What does it mean? They're not, that literally, geographically, they're not heading to the east. They're heading to the west. But why does the Hebrew say they're heading from the east? Well, what?
Eastern culture to Western culture?
They weren't quite there yet. There wasn't an understanding of that yet. There was something else in the east. What was in the east for these people? Anybody remember? So remember what I always say? Everything can be found where? Where in Genesis? 1, 2, and 3. Everything from the whole Bible can be found in Genesis 1, 2, and 3. So let me read Genesis 3:24. It says this. Maybe you've heard this before. And he drove the man out, and he placed cherubim in the east of the Garden of Eden, and a flaming sword which turned every way to guard the way back to the tree of life. Where did he place? Where did he place the cherubim? In the east. So if I move away from the east, what am I actually moving away from? Yes. So these are little hints in the Hebrew. The Hebrew's telling you that this guy, Nimrod, and all of these people, when they headed from the east, they were moving away from God. This is who they were. They weren't coming to God. They were moving away as far away as they could because they wanted to be their own God. Or maybe Nimrod wanted to be his own God. As well as what else happens in the east every single morning? The sun rises in the east. Light enters darkness. And what does light do to darkness? It dispels it. And what does darkness do? It flees the light. And if light is in the east, I have to move away from that. So these are all little Hebrew clips. These are all hints that the Hebrew is trying to teach us. Like, pay attention. There's these little things happen. Pay attention, pay attention, pay attention. And we miss it in the English because it doesn't capture this. When one moves from the east, we are choosing to abandon the ideas of God. And the one who chooses, like I said, chooses his own small God. This is how tyranny always works. I have to replace God with a smaller God, because if you believe in God, then you want to make your own choices based on what he says, not on what I say. So I have to get you to abandon that forcefully, or maybe if I'm good enough, I can get you to voluntarily get rid of God. Verses 3-4. Somebody else. Go ahead, Danny.
They said to each other, "Come, let's make bricks and bake them thoroughly." They used brick instead of stone and tar for mortar. Then they said, "Come, let us build ourselves a city with a tower that reaches to the heavens, so that we may make a name for ourselves. Otherwise, we will be scattered over the face of the whole earth."
Great. So right off the bat, just even in the English, what's wrong with these two sentences? From a leadership perspective. Come on, Colonel.
I didn't hear it.
Okay. They're out of order. Who comes up with how to make bricks and the need for bricks before you have this grand vision? Don't you say, I think we should build this house. I think we should build this community, or I think we should build this organization. And then what's the next question you ask? How do we do it? How does this passage start? How we do it. So once again, the Hebrew is pointing something out. The point of this is that Nimrod never had a goal to build anything. That was just what he used to get you to do what he wanted you to become. I'm going to come up with this idea. I'm going to make bricks. And then I'll cast this vision so that you'll all want to be a part of it. This is the point of this story. If I want to voluntarily enslave a group of people, how do I do that? This is how authoritarianism works. And why bricks? Why does the text use bricks? What do we know about bricks? They're uniform. They're all exactly the same. In that time frame, most buildings, if you traveled around or have seen pictures, a lot of buildings or a lot of walls were built out of what? Stones. What's the difference between a stone and a brick?
Stones
There's-
over New Man.
There's no, did David answer?
One's natural versus man-made.
Well, one's natural, one's man-made. And the other thing is that there's no stone alike. Each stone is unique. There's no one exactly the same, yet bricks are exactly made just like the other one. What does this remind you of? How many of you guys have a fingerprint? Everybody have a fingerprint? Whose fingerprint is like somebody else in this room? Whose fingerprint is like anybody else in this country? Whose fingerprint is like anybody in the world that has ever existed? Nobody. What's the point of the story? Nimrod had to make everybody exactly the same. I had to make you feel and think and do everything exactly the same as the person next to you, because if you have your own identity, you're not going to want to follow along. So I have to strip you of all of that. I have to strip you of all of the things that you think you are, your character, your identity, your faith especially, anything that makes you an individual. I have to strip that away and make you into a brick. And then the other word there for, how are the bricks made? What does it say? What was used to make the bricks?
I have to
Clay.
Did it say? What does it say? Read it again.
I have cinnamon, but I don't know. But he's tar.
Tar,
That's what they use for mortar.
mortar. Okay, anybody else have another word for mortar? The Hebrew word, mine says, had asphalt for mortar, but the Hebrew word there is komer. And komer basically means material. The idea is that if I take the material or use the material or reduce you to material, if I take the spiritual out of you and just make you a spiritual being that's just like everybody else, now I've made you what? A number. You're just a number. You're a number on a spreadsheet. That's it. And the story is a warning that we see in patterns all throughout history. We see tyrants, we see authoritarians, we see dictators, we see pharaohs, we see Caesars. And too often we look at these stories as the ancient, they're just those are the things of history. They're back then. But what have I taught about history?
Repeats itself.
It repeats. It's not always the same. Why isn't it the same? Because each time it has the opportunity to repeat, we have the option and the choice to choose a different path. The question is, are we paying attention? Because what is the old saying? Who's the history teachers in here? You got one. For those who forget the past are condemned to repeat it. And I don't have this in here, but in the text, in the Hebrew Bible, 137 times God says, remember, 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 remember. Every time we have a holiday, we celebrate Passover, we celebrate, Booths, we celebrate all these things. It's always about remember, remember, remember. Because the moment we forget the past, we forget history, we are bound to repeat it again. And these patterns, they're still happening today. This can happen in countries, it can happen in governments, but it can also happen in smaller scales. It can happen in businesses, corporations, local governments, even families. Families have tyrants. And in my opinion, I believe we are in the midst of seeing another Tower of Babel coming. It's not here yet, but it's coming. And it won't happen the way the pundits tell you it's going to happen. It's not going to be, we love to look at this and we like to point the fingers at politicians this way and politicians this way. And we're like, see that? And as I've been watching this and studying this pattern, I don't think it's going to be that way. I think that there will be one language, and that language won't be English and it won't be Chinese. I believe that language will be binary. Give me the next one. This is the idea of things that are coming about, right? There's this idea of like human flourishing and we will become gods. Like this is Peter Diamandis, like this is his saying. You have Sam Altman, who's like, oh, I'm building an AI that will be God. He doesn't believe in God, but he's building a machine that will be God. And he's not shy about saying it. And then I just read this yesterday. AI chatbots are making people all think the same. It's reducing everybody's language to one language. There's no more creative thought. There's no, this is how I would say it, or this is how you would say it. Well, how does ChatGPT say it? Okay, that's how we're going to say it now. And so everybody's thought patterns are becoming one. The question is, are we paying attention? I'm not against AI, but I do think that there are many people that will use this not for good benefits, not for good reasons. And it's our responsibility as the faith community to say, like, wait a second, is this a Nimrod moment? Is there somebody trying to force us in a path and they sound so good? Like, why wouldn't I want to be a part of this human flourishing where I can live for 600-700 years? Who wouldn't want that? Who wouldn't want to clone your body and just download your consciousness into a chip that can just be put into another chip every time your body wears out? Who wouldn't want that? But that's where we're at. That's what is coming. That's what they are. I mean, this sounds like sci-fi, Matt. This is what they are currently working on. I'm like studying this every week because it sounds horrifying to me. And I listen to these guys and they're laughing and jovial and they can't wait for these things to happen. And they're like, it won't be 12 years from now. It could be 12 months from now when we get a lot of these things. And they're like, 12 months is like 12 years in a time frame. In fact, the Industrial Revolution, how long did the Industrial Revolution last? How long did it build up and create things? It lasted what, almost 200 years? From 1700 to about almost 1900, somewhere around there? The Industrial Revolution took a long time. Did it change the world? Of course it did. It changed everything globally. One of the guys from Google AI said this. He said, what took 200 years to change the world, AI is moving at a rate where it will have 10 times the impact that the Industrial Revolution had. 10 times. And then he also said, it will happen 10 times faster. So it took 200 years, will take 20 to change the entire globe. So my question is, as the faith community, are we asking questions of leadership? Are we challenging the people who are in charge to pay attention? Because as I said, I don't think the next Nimrod will be government. I think it's very likely that could be a corporation. They're the ones who already the government and people are going to and say, hey, if AI replaces everything, corporations, what are you going to do to pay people? Well, who does that transfer the power to? And if there's only 2 or 3 corporations that have all the power and they're not faith-based, what do we do? So, man, a lot of people say, oh, this is just a history. It's a dusty book. Who cares? Stuff matters. Greatly. So not to leave you on a gloomy idea, but that's where I'm at, all right? That's where I have been studying and researching, and that's where my heart is. And as I read this story, I'm thinking, dear God, open our eyes, please. Tell the people that you are friends with, tell the other people in faith communities, like spread this message, like just pay attention. Think about what's going on. Don't just go along to get along. Because that's what Nimrod was great at. Remember, he was a hunter in the face of God. He was so crafty that he was able to manipulate an entire civilization. So be on your guard. Let me pray this out. Father, we thank you for this morning. We thank you for just the challenges that you present us, that you have put us in a time such as this. As we just as many people looked at Purim that just happened a week ago, may we remember Nehemiah and Ruth. And may we remember that this could be a moment for us to be aware of what's happening, to live with boldness and courage, and to dig into your word, to seek your wisdom and your discernment as we pursue you with all of our hearts. We praise your holy name. Amen. Questions?
I have a comment. I think what he said was, first of all, I can't wait to do a word study. Because the Comer and stuff is like, okay, got more studying. But I think the way he said it on FaceTime or whatever is, because that's where my mind is always going, like how technology is always implicated in rule.
Yeah.
And how we always give ourselves over to technology. And he talked about how it's man-made versus natural.
Right.
And you're talking about AI, and I'm a words guy, obviously we always talk about that. So I looked up artificial, and it means man-made. That's the meaning of artificial, man-made intelligence. So we're erecting our own intelligence. It's really nothing different from what we used to do when we used to erect our own idols.
Yeah.
So it really is the same thing.
Good comment.
Like,
Anybody else?
Something I've learned recently, like with setting up societies and stuff, like talking about Nimrod, it sounded like in the beginning, like with making bricks and stuff, the difference between like a good man and a corrupt man would be like God started in Genesis 1 creating order, like man is made to create order, and like if you that turns bad, that turns into tyranny. So I feel like Nimrod kind of started stuff off with order, like everybody wants order. You create these bricks that are exactly the same size, and you get your order and your purpose, and then that turns into tyranny. Like I feel like I can see that with AI being like, even like cooking dinner and stuff like that, using AI to cook dinner, like it puts stuff in order for us to do it. But like what you're saying, I fully agree with saying like you gotta be, there's a line that's crossed somewhere, and I feel like it's gonna be hard to see.
Yeah, there's a balance. Lindley's ready to jump in. Go ahead.
I think a lot of times, I feel like things as an idea are good, and a lot of times they're meant to be good, and they start off good, and then it just, okay, we did this, so let's try this, and it becomes a bad thing.
Sure. And there's a lot of people who probably, as you both just pointed out, that started out good, and at some point, the corruption or something got them moved in a direction, and maybe if Don was here, he'd tell you maybe it was ego. You know, maybe our egos, you know, like what are the, you know, what is it, how does the saying go? Corruption corrupts completely. How does the saying go?
Absolute.
Yeah.
Absolute power corrupts absolutely, right? And so the more power that we get, the more that we crave. And so that's where this is very important, because this Bible, these words of God, doesn't matter where you find it, continuously point to the fact of saying, submit yourself to God, not to yourself. Submit, you know, repent, turn, all these different warnings of like, you know, you are to humble yourself because pride or the fall comes before pride, or pride comes before the fall. I keep messing these words up today. Sorry. There's an idea of humility, and the more our ego grows, the less humility we seem to have. And so there's all of these warnings about, and that's why I was saying, like, it's not just in governments. Like, we see this in families. I mean, how many families have we counseled here because of a tyrant in the home who had to have absolute power and control? No, this is how we do it. You know, you had to even like turn the glasses the right way in the refrigerator, because if not, you know, when so-and-so gets home, like somebody's going to explode, right? Like, this is where trauma happens. It's not just in government. Tyranny is a human condition, and we can all struggle with it.
It sounded like you were summarizing a Karl Marx book.
A what?
A Karl Marx book. The Communist Manifesto.
yeah, there's a lot of stuff that they did. I mean, I read a book. I have a book in one of these rooms where it was on Karl. It was Karl Marx. I'm pretty sure it was Karl Marx's book, and he dedicated. I'm sure the foreword, he dedicated his book to Satan. That was his right. That's how much he hated God. And so his whole manifesto was begin with, I dedicate this whole manifesto to. Yeah. Yes, sir.
I actually have a question. One quick comment before it go. I don't think there's anything wrong with artificial intelligence. I actually believe it's mandated. In other words, God gave us the ability to image him, so we have creative ability.
Mm-hmm.
So artificial intelligence, technology, all of that stuff is good, but I like how you're hitting the nail on the head that it's ego. We keep taking this ability that God gave us and saying, oh, we don't need God. Mistaking.
Which is why I said it's our responsibility as the faith community to stand up. We can't be passive at this time in history.
Amen. And the question is I've always seen Babel as an archetype, not necessarily a video footage of what happened in history, but an
So is
archetype.
Shinar. Yeah, that's why I didn't go to them. But yes, you're correct.
So you wouldn't say that Babel has just been ongoing and continuous. Like, it's not necessarily something that's in the future, but even America itself, along with your other nations, are Babel. The only non-Babel nation is the nation that Jesus started. You wouldn't say it like that, or I'm just.
If you're comparing Babel to empires, or
I see America having Babel features in terms of uniformity.
Yeah.
And maybe it's not like they haven't reached its peak, right? It could be worse, but we're still a Babel.
I think it's in our nature.
Yeah.
I think it's in our human nature, and like I said,
Like you
our
say,
ego.
even at the home can be a Babel.
Right. Yeah. And I think that when this country was started, I've done a lot of research on this country. How it was started is not how we live today. The principles that we were started on, and the ideas of freedom, and this idea of
Well, it depends on what you mean by how it started, right?
Well,
I'm just saying.
I'm talking about the Puritans, and when they moved here from all of these things, there was a lot of ideas that were originally placed into the Constitution that we've drifted away from, I would say.
I think if you look at Genesis, if you're not looking at Genesis as actual stories that 100% happen exactly what they were, Genesis is made to be a story of how things begin. God begins in the garden. God begins with Noah. God begins with Abraham. And I think it's a story of how corruption begins.
Mm-hmm.
If it's not really they didn't really build the tower, it's a story of how not to start stuff.
Right.
Yeah, warning signs. Yeah, great.
And this is probably on another day, but it's the more that you get into AI, it does take people out of a job and just, because there is an idea out there where you just pay people to do nothing.
Universal.
So it takes away all your individuality, your drive to get things done.
Right.
It almost creates a slave mentality that you're just gonna do whatever is next.
That's my research for my paper, for my thesis. I'm trying to figure that out. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Isn't the conversation about AI replacing God, isn't that, it's not replacing the worker, it's replacing the thoughts, the leadership. There is a piece in the paper this week about an AI company fighting DOD because the AI company is trying to hold on to its proprietary information, and the DOD wants that to turn AI loose to be the decision maker on the battlefield, absent humans.
Right.
So to let the machines decide who to attack. And that's where
Colonel over here, Marine Corps, is like, wait a second, time out. I've seen that movie before, I think. There it is, hang on, but we won't go to it. It's just, these are things that we have to stay focused on. Izzy, go ahead.
I was having a conversation with somebody on a similar theme a little while ago, and I brought up the point, there's some companies that are faith-based companies that are trying to harness AI for faith-based purposes, like Glue comes to mind.
Yeah,
They're
Glue,
huge. They're doing
Yep.
a lot of things. And this, the person I was talking to said, well, what about when the leadership changes? What about, because the AI principles are guided by the people in the companies and the leaders who are training it and everything. So what happens, like you might start out to have this, this faith-based AI company with these noble goals in the service of, the Lord, but then if leadership changes or there's drift or something, or somebody gets their hands on the right, what happens then? Does it then become a tool for deception or, what, even though you might start with these really noble purposes, what happens down the road? And I just thought that was a really interesting perspective to bring in.
It's a good question, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, which is why I would say, paper, man, it's librarian, right? How important is paper? That we need to get back to some of just this stuff right here. So, all right, you guys have a great weekend. Enjoy your Sabbath.